Hey guys, so let's go through this winter scene in your holiday skill builders from 0 to finish. All right. So first thing is we need your Illustrator open. And we want to create a new document that's 600 by 600 pixels. When you click File New, right over here under Units, make sure that it's in pixels. And then once you confirm that, type in 600 for the width, 600 for the height, and you'll get a 600 by 600 artboard right here. Now we're ready to begin with step one, where we're going to create the shape and then modify it to become something that looks a little more like this kind of arrowhead. First thing you want to click is your polygon tool. If you don't see it, you can long click on the rectangle tool and it'll pop up right there. If you click and drag this, normally by default you'll get a polygon that has I think 6 sides by default. Okay, so if you click the polygon tool and just click and drag, this might be what you see. So we don't want to click and drag. You just want to click a single time, right, anywhere in the middle of your artboard, and then that'll give you this pop-up window where you can specify the number of sides, and you'll change that to 3, and you'll get a equilateral triangle like that. Select this with the black arrow tool, Control C to copy, Control F to copy it right in front. Oh, I'm sorry. Confused. We don't have to do that. We're going to transform it. Okay, so go up to Object, Reflect. The axis is horizontal, and we want to click Copy. Okay. Now you have these two triangles. We want to scooch this one down until they're about centered, and you have 3 equal triangles. Just about, you can just kind of eyeball it to the best of your ability until these 3 triangles are about equal. I'm going to nudge it down a little. Okay, now once you have them overlapping to your liking, select both of these guys and go to your Pathfinder tool. Where did mine go? I'm not sure. If you don't see your Pathfinder window, just go up to Window, go into Pathfinder, okay, and then we're going to click Unite. Now from here, we're going to take out 2 of these points. So with your white arrow tool selected, hold Shift on your keyboard, and then click on these 6 points, these 6 anchor points. You can delete that. Now, go to your pen tool, hover over this anchor point. Once you click, this bottom anchor point is going to disappear, but if you try to find it and hover over it, you should see anchor pop out. And then you can complete this shape right there. And that should take us to step 2, where we're going to start adding colors, duplicating it to get it ready for the blend. So select your shape right here. I'm going to shrink mine a little bit. We can get rid of the stroke. For the fill, the tutorial tells you to use a very specific color for both of these. You can use your own preferred colors if you want to. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to just use what the video is suggesting. So that's 13100, 13100. And then over here, you can duplicate this down. And the quick way to do that will be to hold Alt and Shift on your keyboard and just click and drag this down. Oops. My bad. So it's a different sequence actually. First hold Alt on your keyboard, then click and drag it, right? While you're dragging it, now hold down the Shift button. That way it'll copy it as you drag, but it'll lock it to one of either the vertical or horizontal directions. Okay. If not, that was a little too complicated. You could just copy by Control C, Control F to copy it right in front of this, and just drag that down while holding Shift so that it goes straight down. We're going to adjust the fill color of this second duplicated one, and it specifies 804200. So 804200. Now we are going to blend these two shapes. Okay, so get these two shapes selected. Go up to Object, Blend, Blend Options. This is where we're going to specify how we want it blended. By default, it's in smooth color. Click on the drop-down window, go down to Specified Steps, and then type in 12 over here. When you click OK, it's not going to do anything. That's all right. All we did was specify the parameters. So go back to Object, Blend, and then Make. There you should see this popping out. Okay, so let's check in over here. We're still on step 2. Next step is for us to rotate these guys individually at 11-degree increments. Okay, so before we do that, this is considered a single blended object, right? So we want to expand that. So with this selected, go up to Object, Expand, and then it's still grouped, so we want to ungroup this. Select this again. You can go up to Object and Ungroup, or just Shift-Control-G. After you do that, you should be able to select each of these shapes individually. Okay. Starting with the top one, select that, go up to Object, Transform, Rotate. We're going to specify 11 degrees for the first one. Repeat the same steps, but add another 11 to the second one, so that just got rotated 22 degrees. The third shape, we're going to specify at 33, and then you're going to keep going down like that. Something's funky. Or, I'm not sure. Oops. So I'm on my third shape. Transform, rotate 33. Huh. Yeah, I think I did something incorrectly in my blend. Let me go back here. Let's blend this. Expand it. And then ungroup it. For some reason I have duplicates of this, and I'm not sure why. Let's try to work with it. So starting from the top, trying to get back on track, rotated by 11. Excuse me. Second one, we're going to rotate by 22. I see what's okay. This one will rotate by 33. Rotate by 44. 55. 66. 77. Oops. 88. 99. 123. 134. 145. 156. Oops. And then the last one, 166. Is that right? I don't think so. Where was it at before? 156 plus 11 would be 167. Yeah, 167. Okay, so your end product should look something like this. Let's check back in with the directions. Yeah, there we go. So now we can begin with step 3. Okay, that's where we're actually making the tree over here. So let's see. I think we need to group all these guys. Yeah, group. So yeah, before we move on to step 3, we're going to group all these guys. So select all this. You can right click, group. Now we can move on to step 3. We're going to create a new layer to create this green triangle as a kind of guideline for us to make this tree. All right. We're just going to keep duplicating this pattern that we created until we end up with a full-on tree like this. Okay. I'm going to shrink this down a bit, set it aside. Let's go to the layers. I'm going to create a new layer. It comes out on top by default. I'm going to drag that below layer 1 and just rename it triangle. Making sure that the triangle layer is selected, we can now make that long triangle. I'm actually going to use the polygon tool. And then once it's there, I can use the white arrow tool to just move this top anchor point up. Okay. You can change the color of it to a kind of green. We're going to get rid of this green triangle. It's just a kind of template for us. Okay. This triangle layer, we want to lock it. All right. So position it where you'd like. Right over here, next to the eyeball, click, and you won't be able to select or move that triangle around. Select the layer 1 so that you can manipulate the objects that are on it. Let's reduce this down to about this size. Not too small, because if it's too small, you're going to have to duplicate a whole bunch. All right. Now here, I would use the mouse dragging shortcut to duplicate this. Okay. One way to duplicate this is to just copy, paste, and then kind of like move this stuff around. I think a faster way to do that is to lay the first one down, hold Alt, and then drag it. You'll get a duplicated object just like that. Okay. Hold Alt and drag it. Then you can rotate this slightly. Rotate that one slightly. Just kind of keep going down, hold Alt, drag. Hold Alt, drag. We maybe want a couple more. And just keep adjusting the rotation of this. All right, going layer by layer while as you hold Alt and just drag this. Okay. Doesn't want to look too mechanical. You know, there wants to be a little bit of seeming randomness to this pattern. It doesn't have to be super precise, but once in a while, as you click and drag this stuff, you do want to rotate it just slightly. If you don't do this rotation, it looks kind of the tree ends up looking kind of stiff, you know. So just Alt, click and dragging every time I want to add a new layer. In fact, you can grab a few of these, hold Alt, and click and drag those as well. Once you have a pretty good looking layer for yourself, and maybe you can expand it out a little bit with like 2 more of these kind of tendrils. So select a bunch, hold Alt, drag, maybe adjust the rotation of this a little bit so it looks a little different from the one on top. If you do that, if you only that group kind of copying, let me step back here. If I keep doing that over and over and I don't make any slight adjustments, you'll notice a pattern over here. You notice this dark blue, this V shape that gets consistently copied down. We want to break that up a little bit with the rotation. Okay, just adjust the rotation of these guys and sort of make it a little more randomized, so you don't get so that it doesn't look too contrived. Okay, oops. There we go. And I think one more layer is probably going to do it for us. Pretty happy with that. Once you have the tree, we no longer need this triangle layer. So you could just drag that layer down to the trash, and that'll get rid of it for you. Step 4, we're going to make the background black and then create the luminescence on top. Okay. The way we're going to do that is by starting to use the blend tool, which is a very powerful tool. It looks like a gradient, but it's an object that behaves very differently from a gradient. Okay. Step 4 also involves creating this kind of starburst along with a mask, right? So we'll walk through all of this. So let's begin with this pair of circles. So set this tree aside. You can shrink it a little to make it a little more manageable. Let's create a new layer. Layer 2 by default. Drag it underneath layer 2. And let's rename this background. Let's get the rectangle tool out. Oops. There we go. The color of the background for now, let's set it to black. Over here where you have a free area, let's start working on the that luminescence. Okay, so this layer 1, I'm going to rename this as the tree. On top of it, I'm going to rename this third layer luminescence. Okay, make sure this new layer is selected before you start adding objects to it. Let's add some ellipses. So go to your ellipse tool, click and drag while holding shift. Okay. It has a black fill, so it's not visible. Let's change the fill to white. And then here, click Control C to copy, Control F to copy it right in front of it. And without selecting anything else, click and drag this corner while you're holding Alt as well as Shift. That'll shrink the size of it in proportion. And while still being centered. Okay. So for this outside circle, we no longer need the fill. Okay, so get that fill out of there. And we're going to set the stroke to be white. But the transparency, we're going to change it to be 0. Okay, so in your gradient tool, it might be located in a different place, but there's a transparency option over here. Okay. If you don't see that, you can go up to Window, right over here, Transparency, and it should pop up. You want to drag the opacity all the way down to 0, so you won't see it, and that's where we want to go. Okay, that's how we want it to look like. With this looking this way, okay, select both of those circles, the small one and the large one. The large one with add zero opacity, and then we're going to blend these two. Okay, so go to blend. We're going to change up the options. So blend options. I believe the steps specified was 100. Let's see. No, it's at 40. So we're going to change the steps to 40. Click OK. Nothing's going to happen. That's all right. Go back up to Object, Blend, Make, and then you should see this kind of gradient, almost sphere looking thing pop up. Okay. Okie doke. Now we're going to create a third circle. Honestly, this is the point where I would veer off from this specific part of the tutorial, because we have a better tool to make this kind of starburst pattern. Okay, that we learned from the ornament, the holiday ornament. We are going to use the Pathfinder tool and everything else, but just for the generating that pattern, let's use something else. So I just recognize right now that the background layer is not locked. It's kind of a pain if it keeps sliding around, so make sure to click over here to lock the background, and then click back on the luminescence layer so that you're just working with this. Okay, so set that aside. We are going to create another ellipse. Okay, so click and drag while holding shift. Let's set the fill to nothing and the stroke to white. And then here's where we're going to use the trick we learned from the ornament. Go up to your stroke window, and then we're going to bump this up to be quite thick. Okay, let me see what 100 looks like. So at 100, you know, I still have a void in the center, so I can shrink this guy until I don't see that black circle anymore. Okay, now with this stroke selected, right, let's set the dashed line and type in some values over here until you see a pattern that's to your liking. Okay, next, select this stroke, go up to Object, and we're going to expand Appearance first, then go back up to Object, and now we can expand it as a fill-in stroke. Okay, so it's looking a little funky in the middle. Let's see if that works out. Okay, we want to align this blended object as and center it with this starburst pattern. I'm going to shrink this down a little. We don't need it that large. So window select both of these, and up over here, this is where the alignment options are for me. If you don't see that, you can go up to Window, Align. Okay, but with both of these selected, select the horizontal align center as well as the vertical align center. That'll make it 100% sure that they're aligned. Now you should be able to window select them again, right click, and make a clipping mask. Okay, and there's your starburst pattern right there. This thing, now you can move it over here on top of the tree. Let's see, did I miss anything? The tutorial says to create a 5-point star using the star tool and place it over the luminescence as shown. That is useful in some way to just kind of cover up this sort of weird artifacted area. But honestly, you don't really have to. You can kind of skip that step and just get this brightness over the very tip of the tree. Yeah. Whether or not there's a star, in my opinion, it doesn't make a huge difference. So you can kind of skip over that. So that was step 4. We can move on to step 5 now, where we start to work on the background. Okay, so they want us to fill the background, fill the black rectangle with a radial gradient, placing the center of the gradient on the center of the star. Okay, and they have a specific CMYK value, 6000 versus 60 and all the way to 90. So let's do that. First, I'm going to position the tree within the square at a spot like that's toward the right. Now would be the time to resize it to a size that seems to make sense, right? I'm going to have it be about that. And then I'm going to go to Layers, unlock my background layer, select this black square, make sure I'm in fill mode right here, and then I can go to my gradient tool. Let's apply a radial gradient. And the white, let's see, I think it was 60 and zeros all the way around. And then over here on the far end, saying 60 and 90 right there. Okay. So with the gradient tool, with this background square selected, I'm going to press G, and that's going to give me this option. It's going to give me this this line over here. That's going to let me know now I have the power to redefine the origin point. So I'm going to hover my mouse over the tip of the tree, click and drag, okay, until I have a way like this to redefine the where the gradient, that radial gradient is starting from. What you might notice is a kind of harder line coming out over here. What you can do to adjust that is click and drag this middle diamond up. Make sure you have the object selected, and then you can click and drag this diamond a little bit more toward the left side, okay, to make it a smoother kind of transition from this lighter blue to the darker blue. All right. So continuing on, was that all of step 5? Yeah, I think so. So that was all of step 5, just applying that radial gradient to the background. Step 6, we're going to work on creating this snowstorm. So I'm going to go on a new layer and draw, using the pen tool, draw 3 of these curves with this particular CMYK value. Okay, so 71, 20, 28. Okie doke. So above the luminescence, or we just got to make sure it's above the background layer actually, and it's behind the tree layer. So I'm going to label this as the snowstorm. Lock the background to make sure I don't move it around. Make sure you've selected the right layer. Let's go up to the pen tool to create those wavy kind of strokes. Over here, I'm going to get rid of the fill, and in the stroke, I'm going to specify that particular color. What was it again? 71, 20, 28. So 71, 20, 28, 0. Now we're in business. Trick here that I want to show you with the pen tool. When you click, you can actually drag immediately off the bat to make sure that the second point is being informed by this particular tangency. Okay, so we can draw one path like that, click and drag. Let's see, maybe it can look kind of like this, kind of crosses each other behind where the tree's at. It's a little different from the tutorial, but that's all right. Once you have those paths drawn, you can select the white arrow tool to adjust the direction of these curves and the kind of amplitude of how far it's going. Let's see over here. Oh, not that one. There we go. That seems to be a little more natural. Okay, so we have 3 paths drawn out in this kind of wavy pattern. They kind of intersect each other somewhere behind the tree. Happy with that. Still on step 6 right now. We're going to set the opacity to 0 for that top line and then apply a blend starting from the middle line. Okay, and the steps in this case is we're going to set the parameter to 100. So the top line, let's go to opacity, set it to 0. And then the middle line, select that along with the 0 opacity top line. Go to Object, Blend. Let's change the options to have 100 steps. Nothing's going to happen. That's all right. Go to Blend, Make, and then you should see this nice, smooth transition like that. Okay. We're going to do the same with the bottommost line. Set the opacity there to 0. Oh, I'm kind of jumping the gun here. This right now is we need to expand it. Okay, because it's considered one blended object right now. So go up to Object, Expand. A bunch of, you might see a bunch of highlighted lines like that. That's okay. Just click outside of it. We need to ungroup as well. So we can right click on this group, ungroup, and then, so that you can select the lines individually. Okay. Now you just select the bottommost line as well as the bottom line over here that where you change the opacity to 0. Now you can blend these objects. Okay. There we go. So this is what you should end up with, or something similar. Let's see if I missed anything. No, I think that wraps it up for step 6. Let's move on to step 7. We're going to start creating some snowflakes. So this is where we begin to use the symbol sprayer tool, which is pretty nifty. Okay, we're going to create 2 circles with different colors. They're just small, tiny circles, 3 pixels by 3 pixels large. One of them is going to have that darker blue, and the other is just going to be white. We're going to apply that or drag that into our symbols palette so that we could use the sprayer. Okay, so let's stick with the first layer over here. So this is my snowstorm, right? And the wavy lines that we just created. Right above that, I'm going to create a new layer and call it snowflakes. I'm going to go ahead and lock that snowstorm layer so I don't mess with it. Make sure I'm in the snowflakes layer now. Let's make some circles. So with the ellipse tool selected, just click once so that you can specify the width and the height as 3 by 3. Okay, you can do that again. Neither of these need strokes. One of them is going to have that that kind of blue color, that darker blue color. I need to actually change it. And the other one is going to just be white. Okay. Let me look back on what the CMYK was, 71, 20, 28. Okay. So this darker blue, you want the fill to be 71, 20, 28. Is that right? 71, 20, 28. It's just slightly different, I guess. Okay, so now that you have these 2 circles, let me just double check here. Yeah, we're going to drag both of them into the symbols palette so that we can start using them to spray on a kind of snowflake pattern. So the symbol palette is over here for me. You can go to Windows, Symbols if you don't see it. Drag these circles there. I'm starting with my white one. You can rename it. Okay, I'm renaming mine small white circle, and then drag your small blue circle in there as well. Okay, small blue circle. Now you have these available to use with your symbol sprayer. Okay, to access your symbol sprayer, hold Shift, press S. Oops, and then you should see this pop up. Okay, I have my white small circle selected, and if I click and drag, you can kind of spread out these white circles in a concentration that makes sense for you. Okay, now I'm going to switch over to the blue circles and do the same. I've got it selected, click Shift S. And this one, I'm going to have it be a little more sparse, maybe toward the outer edges of this. Okay, but not as numerous as the white circles. So that's how you take a simple shape, input it, pretty much like save it into the symbols palette, and so you can use it as a spray. Okay. Continuing on with step 7, we're going to create some larger snowflakes. These are going to be 20 by 20 pixels, as well as the smaller ones are going to be 3 by 3s. All right, it's a similar color. Let me see. So yeah, it's kind of a repeat of us. We're just reinforcing the way how we use the blend tool in particular. Okay. I think I deleted those. So it's kind of useful to keep these original circles around, because all you really need to do is change up the dimensions over here. So this is both of these are 3 by 3 pixels. You can copy them copy them by holding Alt, okay, and dragging them over. You can select these guys, and then over here, under W, type in 20. For the height, type in 20. Didn't quite work. Let me see. Oh, okay. No, I can't do it both at the same time. So just one at a time. Type in 20, 20. There we go. Oh, no. I keep messing up here. So make sure this little symbol is unlocked if you want to do it this way. Or you could just redraw two circles that are 20 by 20 pixels large. That's fine too. Okay, so from here, hold on, let me double check here. There we go. These 3 by 3 pixel circles, we're going to lay them right in the center. Okay, you can drag them over like I just did there, or if you really want to make sure, you can use the align tool right there. Okay, the outer circles for both the blue and the white, we're going to set the opacity for them right down to 0. Now we can start blending these. Okay, so select these two circles. Let's go to Object Blend. Didn't quite work, did it? Oh, because it didn't have a stroke. All right, so the want to set the fill to be nothing, and the stroke for this particular one needs to be blue. Let me just double check by adjusting the transparency. No, not quite. I'm not sure what I did there. Okay, let's kind of start over with this. My bad. So, starting fresh. Let's do a 20 by 20 pixel circle. I'm going to set the fill to be this color of blue. Can copy that over, change the fill here to be white. Yeah, let's just keep it simple. So copy the blue with Control-C, Control-F to copy it right in front. Hold Alt and Shift while I shrink that smaller circle down. Do the same over here. Okay, and then let's go back to these guys. One by one, let's do it. So I'm going to get the stroke to be blue and the fill to be nothing. Okay, it's looking better. I'm going to get the stroke to be white and the fill to be nothing. Both of these need to have their opacity set to 0. Now we should be in business to start the blend. Blend, make, there we go. Blend, make. Great. So it looks like there's like two variations of each, one larger, one kind of smaller. And then we drag all 4 of those into the symbols palette so that we could use the symbol sprayer tool. In the tutorial it says symbol slayer tool. A little funny typo there. So copy both of these over. The way I just did that was by selecting both of them, hold Alt, start dragging it, and then hold Shift. Okay. I'm going to select both of these and shrink them down a bit. And then let's get these ready in our symbols panel. So open that up. I click and drag this in there, rename it. You don't have to rename it by the way, but I kind of like to keep it organized. So white fuzzy ball. And then let's put this one over here. Small blue fuzzy. Small white fuzzy. Now that those are available, I don't need these guys anymore. So with this symbol selected, Shift S to access the sprayer. And you can kind of click around. You don't have to click and drag like I tried to do over there. Okay. I want these kind of fuzzy things to be more toward the outside, maybe some outliers here and there. And then let's switch over to the white fuzzy. Shift S to get the sprayer out. And I want these to be focused more so toward the middle of this kind of swoop right there. Definitely want some of the smaller ones too. There we are. And a few of the smaller blue ones, I would say. So you get your desired effect kind of looking like that. All right. Are we still on step 7? It's a big step. Okay. So the next step in step 7 is to start making these snowflake shapes. Once we create them, we're going to apply a Gaussian blur and then apply them sort of like we were doing, but not using the symbol sprayer this time. We're just going to duplicate them, rotate them slightly, that sort of thing. Okay. We're going to start with this kind of double Y shape right there. So over here, we're still on the snowflakes layer. Let's keep working there. Using the pen tool now, let's specify the stroke color. How best to do this? I want it the same color as that. So let me just kind of remind myself what that was. The 71, 20, 28. 71, 20, 28. Okay, great. So I have the pen tool selected. I have the stroke color that I want. Click, hold Shift, click vertically. I have a line that kind of looks like this. Select that path, and then this is the part where the tutorial doesn't necessarily explain this. You want to go up to your stroke options, and then for the cap, select the round cap, okay? And then for the stroke weight, you probably want to bump it up a little so that it's got kind of this sort of proportion. I'm going to make it a little longer. Okay. I'm going to make a few diagonals over here, or just one of them. Copy that down by holding Alt, dragging it, and then as I drag it, hold Shift. And then the second one, I can hold Shift and resize it to be a little bit longer. Select both of these diagonals, and then let's reflect it over the vertical axis while copying it. Drag that over there. So kind of trying to gauge like the right proportions for this. I'm going to lengthen that middle line a bit. Once you're happy with your double Y shape, select all these paths. We do want to first expand these. Okay. And then once they're expanded, you can make sure they're all selected, go to the Pathfinder tool and unite them. Okay. So that takes us to about here. Let's see. Okay. So select this newly united shape you got. We're going to reflect it and copy it over the horizontal axis. Drag it down so that there's some overlap over here. Select both of these guys. You can use the Pathfinder to unite them once more. Okay. And I believe the direction said you're going to rotate it 60 and then use Command D to repeat the operation twice. And then expand the whole thing. Okay, and unite them as well. Okay, so select this kind of double pronged trident thing. Let's go up to Object, Rotate, specify it as 60, copy. And then with this same thing selected, Control D to just repeat that same command. Okay, Almost there for this snowflake to finish it off. Oh, select all of them, unite it again. So it's one kind of object. And then we're going to make a circle over here with some prongs going out. Okay. So going back to the ellipse tool, I'm going to start at the center, and as I click and drag, I'm going to make sure I have Alt held down so it's centered on the snowflake. And I'm also going to hold Shift to make sure it's an even circle. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Let's use the pen tool to draw these kind of lines coming in this way. And if you have this problem, instead of trying to set the same parameters, or actually, we don't really have a choice. We got to set the same parameters. So select the path, go to your stroke, specify the weight to be the same. I think I set it at 3. And make sure the cap is rounded over here, the round cap. And then from there, I should be able to rotate it while copying, and then Control D to repeat that command the same way we did for these other prongs right there. Now you can select all of these and then use the Pathfinder tool to unite it. You might see this coming out. You just need to get rid of the stroke, so you're left with only the fill. Oh, so I lost my prongs right there. Mistake I made was before I united stuff, I didn't expand these. Okay, so expand these. Now I can select all of it, use the unite tool, or I mean the Pathfinder tool, and then now it's one single united snowflake. We're going to make three variations in sizes, and each of them is going to have a Gaussian blur. All right. So let's first make the 3 sizes. I'm going to shrink this up a little bit. Okay, it's large, medium, and small. Duplicate it down. This one I'm going to change to have a white fill. Duplicate these to the side. Shrink them down a bit. Maybe not that much, just a little bit, and then duplicate it again, shrink it down some more. Just so you guys know how I did that with mouse commands only. I select both of these, I hold Alt, I start the drag, right? While I'm dragging, I hold Shift to constrain it to an orthogonal direction. Let go. I grab a corner, make sure I'm holding Shift as well as Alt. Okay, that'll resize it in proportion and centered. And I'll repeat the same. Select both of them, hold Alt, start the drag, hold Shift, so I constrain it to either up and down or side to side direction. Let go, grab a corner, hold Alt and Shift. Okay, so there we should have large, medium, and small snowflakes. We're going to take these and apply some blurs to it. So select both of the large snowflakes, go up to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I believe the tutorial says to specify it at a radius of 6. Radius of 6 is far too large for me because my snowflakes are not as large as what was being drawn in the tutorial. So you're going to have to gauge for yourself. Okay, I have the the radius 6, and I don't like it because it's too blurry. If I reselect this and I go up to Effect and then try to access the same menu, right? Let's say I'm going to reduce it to 3. What it's doing is it's applying a second blur on top of the already blurred snowflake. So that doesn't work. What you want to do if you end up with a blur that you're unhappy with is just select the objects, go into the appearance window, okay? Window appearance. And then under here, you'll see the Gaussian blur, okay? Click on that. And then here you can actually adjust the quality of that original blur that you applied and see a preview of it as you change the pixel value. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that right there. Not too blurry for me. And then you want to apply the same kind of process to the subsequent ones. The smaller it gets, the smaller radius you want to have in terms of the amount of pixels that are being blurred. So I'm going up to Effect, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to reduce it down to about a 2. Am I happy with that? Yeah, I think so. Let's say I'm not. Go ahead, select these with your appearance window open, click on the Gaussian blur, and then increase it or decrease it to your liking. Okay. For now, I'm just going to keep it where it was. Last one over here. I'm going to reduce it down a little bit more. Pretty happy with that. We're going to duplicate these and lay this here and there around this kind of swooshing snowstorm. Okay. There's no real right or wrong answer about this, but the quickest way to duplicate things, like I said, is hold Alt and just click and drag. It does help to adjust the size slightly and the rotation to give it a little more variation. So I'm first starting with these larger blue ones. I don't want there to be too many. I think I'm actually pretty happy with just 3 of them. Next, I'm going to lay down the larger white ones. You can kind of play around with the sizing and the rotation a bit. Click and drag with the Alt key held down to duplicate quickly. I don't really like it over here because it kind of takes away from the tree a bit. I might just kind of leave it here, sort of drag this around to be cut off over there. I feel like it's one too many of these blue ones. You know, you can make the determination for yourself. How many of these guys you want and where you want them. Okay, I'm going to put in some small ones for the white, some small ones for the blue. Yeah, I think I want some on this side as well. Maybe a medium white one over here. Expand this a little bit to be a different size, maybe rotate it a bit. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. Are we done with step 7? That was a big step. Okay, I think so. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah. All right, now on to step 8. We're going to work on the, let's say, I think we're going to work on the hills. Okay. White snowflakes. Oh no, I'm sorry. So what I just described there up to now actually takes us to the end of step 8. Okay, so step 7 involved adding all the snowflakes. Step 8 was the final step of that stage where we're adding the larger, more pronounced snowflakes in front of everything else. Okay. So moving on to step 9 now. Now we get to draw in some of these hills. Okay. So we are going to make a new layer. It needs to be under the background layer, it said, but I don't think so. It needs to be on top of the background layer, actually. And we're going to draw these in with the pen tool. One of them is going to have a solid color, the one in the background. The hill in the foreground is going to have a radial gradient. Okay, with these specific values. So let's get that in there. Firstly, let's create a new layer. This thing just has to be on top of the background layer. Can rename it to be, let's call it hills. Okay. Make sure the hills layer is selected. Go to the pen tool and then right down over here, wherever it feels proportionally right, click and drag so that you can define the direction of the curve off the bat. And then right up over here, you can click and drag. If you hold Shift, it'll make sure that the handle and the direction of it is either straight left and right or straight up and down. We want the straight left and right in our case. And then we can take it down over here to where you see the smart kind of tracker trace out the beginning anchor point. click there, and then finish off that shape. Okay. After you draw it, you could adjust the size of it to your liking, as well as the height of that hill. I'll show you how to deal with this like overshooting over here in a minute, okay? But first let's draw out the hills to have a kind of natural shape. So the hill in the background, we want to use a similar sort of technique. Oops, there we go. Yeah, kind of messy, but I'm okay with that. So this hill in the back, we want to set it and arrange it to be in the back. So send to the back. And then the fill for this is darker, is that darker blue. Let me grab the value here. 550741. Okay. So it's 550741 for the darker hill. And then over here, this is where we have the radial gradient. 550741 on the left, 550741 on the right. I think that's a mistake because that's the same CMYK value. So we're just gonna pick a light blue versus a very light blue that's to our liking. Okay, so select this front hill, make sure you're in the fill mode, go up to your gradients, and let's define two colors. One of them, we could keep it at that 60000. On the right, let's make this into a much lighter blue. Okay. And then with the hill selected, press G for gradient and adjust the origin of the gradient to your liking. Okay. I think I want to do something like that, and I can adjust the amount of spread of that blue before it gets to the very, very light blue near white color. Maybe even larger over here. Push that origin point down like that. I think I want to, yeah, there we go. Not too white of a color right there. I think that's good. So now, if you're like me, you really don't like these, you probably don't like these overhangs over here. No problem. Take the pen tool, draw a shape that kind of covers up that overhang. Select the two hills and select that new shape. Go to the Pathfinder tool, and it should be this one, minus front. Oops. Maybe it's this one. No, it's not. Whoa. Okay, no, I'm sorry. We got to do it one at a time. So one hill at a time. So select this, select that, minus front. There we go. Okay. Now let's draw a new kind of path over here that covers up the side of this hill. Select those two and then minus front. Okay. Now it's nice and neat. It might set this thing forward depending on the order of your operation. So be sure to send it back. All right. Now, was that step 9? I believe so. So step 10 now. We're on step 10. We're going to add a circle right underneath the tree. Okay. And we're going to apply that using the blend tool. So the inner circle is going to have this CMYK value, 753900. And then the outside is going to have that opacity of 0. Okay. I'm going to actually adjust the kind of overall size of this, the height of this hill just a little. Actually, no, I'm not. It's okay. I'm not going to mess with it. So I'm still on the hills layer, just making sure about that. The fill for this, I don't want it to be a gradient anymore. I'm just going to select the solid color. And then I'm starting my click and drag from the center bottom of the tree. If I hold Alt, it'll make sure that the ellipse gets created centered on there, okay? And that's what we want to see. First, let's make sure that first ellipse has the correct color, so 753900. Cool. And then we can Control C to copy, Control F to copy it right in front of itself, and then click and drag this while holding Shift and Alt to reduce the size of that about this much, let's say. The outside circle, we want to set the opacity down to 0, and then we can blend these together. I'm going to check on what my blend options are. It was set at 100. I don't think I need that many. I'm going to set it back to 40. And then we can blend that, see what that looks like. I think I want to reduce the size of this inner circle a little bit. So I'm going to cancel that. Oops. I'm going to reduce the size of this inner circle just about like that. Select both these ellipses. Let's try that blend tool again. Change my mind. I think I was happier with the original blend. Okay. So that was step 10. We are going to now select it with the direct selection tool, the white arrow, and then apply this wrinkle tool over it to create this nice effect. So go to the white arrow, select these two shapes right here that are blended together now. Now under the wrinkle tool, honestly, it was hard for me to find. Let's see, where'd it go? I think it was, there we go. Right over here, this width tool over here, it's set by default. Go down to the wrinkle tool. You'll get this tool that looks like a big circle. If you click and drag here and there, you'll be able to create this kind of wrinkled effect. Okay, this is a little too pronounced for me, so I'm going to retry that to be a little more subtle. Yeah, so it looks like this is kind of like a crunchy snow underneath the tree. So I think I want to overall increase the size of that shadow and just get it right underneath the tree. That's looking better. Okie doke. Now over this, now we're on step 11 where we create the texture of the snow. We're going to make a 1x1 pixel circle, and then take that into our symbol palette so we can use the symbol sprayer. So click onto the ellipse tool. Let's make sure the fill is set to, where's my colors? Fill is set to white. Click once without dragging so you can specify the pixels to 1x1. And then with the symbol palette open, you can click and drag this in there. And I'm just going to rename that as a 1x1 white circle. Hold Shift S to get the symbol sprayer out. And then you can spray down this whole hill with that tiny 1x1 white circle to give it a nice texture, like snow has fallen over it. You see these little crystals here and there. Pretty nice. Nice enough where I think I want some more. And I'm just clicking and holding here in this operation. So there we are. On to step 12 now. This is the house. This is pretty cool. Okay. First, we're going to make a rectangle that we modify using the 3D effect tool. Okay. The rectangle we're going to make with the fill of 60, CMYK fill of 60, 00, and 80. So let's do that first. The directions I don't think say to create a new layer, but I think it's useful. It wants to be over the hill layer. Okay. So create a new layer that's on top of the hills layer. Let's rename it house. Make sure it's selected. I'm going to lock the hills layer to make sure I don't mess with it. Select the rectangle tool now. Okay, I'm going to adjust the CMYK value off the bat. What was it again? 60, 0080. Okay, so let's draw a rectangle for the house. And then just kind of position it where it seems like it makes sense. We can adjust that later. We're going to go to Effect, 3D, and then we're not going to change any parameters. Just hit OK. Okay, and then we're going to expand that so that we could select the separate faces and change the color like you see over here. So select the rectangle, go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. These are the options we're not going to touch. Just press OK. And you should end up with a three-dimensional look-in shape over here. Okay. Select it, go up to Object, Expand Appearance, and then you're going to be able to see these separate faces like that. Okay. If you want to adjust the size of this this cube over here before expanding, that's you got to do it. You got to do it before, essentially. Okay. So I'm going to adjust the size of it like that. Okay. And once I expand appearance, that looks a little closer to what I want. Okay. Okie doke. So we're going to select this front face and change the color of it to 60, 0060. You can select the white arrow tool. Actually, is that right? Here. So when you click on this expanded cube over here, you can double click on it. And there you should be able to select one of the faces on its own so that you can change the values, the CMYK values like you see over here. Okay, so this is isolate mode. Let's see, we're also going to add a anchor point so that we can make it look like it has a pitch roof. Okay. So over here under the pen tool, you can click on it, click and hold it until you get the add anchor point tool. Click once there, go to the white arrow tool, select and drag that point while holding shift straight up. So you kind of create a pitched roof like that. I exit out of this isolate mode. And then we're going to use the pen tool to draw this snow-covered roof. So go back to the pen tool. I'm going to make sure the fill is what I want it. Actually, I could change that a little later. So the way I would recommend drawing out this snow-covered roof is to use this initial, these angles as a kind of reference, okay? So I'm going to click and drag over here. Sort of start the shape. I want to have it kind of be rounded initially. Just want it to look natural, but also with enough definition to where it looks like, you know, a pretty natural snow-covered roof over here. So made a mistake right there. There we go. Obviously, you can adjust the handles over here after to make sure that you're happy with all the angles. Now I'm going to make sure the fill is what I wanted. I see. So the roof, the snow on the roof is the same color as the snow on the hill. The way you can make sure about that is select the roof, press I for the eyedropper tool, and just select this hill over there. Okay, so it should be lighter than this face as well as this face, but the same color as the snow on the hill. Next up, we're going to make the chimney as well as the windows over here. Okay. For the chimney, just go ahead and make a rectangle like that. Okay, I'm going to press I for the eyedropper tool and select this face to make sure it's the same color as that. The tutorial leaves it as a small chimney or just a rectangle like that, and that's fine. If you want to go just one step further, you can actually apply that 3D effect again with the extrude and bevel. Preview it, and then you'll notice that it's pretty long probably. You can adjust the extrude depth. Don't change any of these angles, okay? Because we want them to be the same. So we could probably adjust the depth to something closer to like 5 pixels. You can press OK there. And that's a little more of a believable shape for the, a little more of a 3D shape for the chimney. Now for the window over here, okay, just outside over here, so it's a little easier to work with, I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to press I for the eyedropper tool, make sure it's the same color as that wall, and let's drag it here. With the white arrows tool selected, hold Shift and select both of these 2 anchor points on the right, and hold Shift while you drag that until the diagonal lines on the top and bottom look parallel to this line over here that I'm hovering over. Okay. Then you can select the black arrow tool to resize it and position it in a place that looks natural. For the mullions of the windows, or the lines in between, I think the simplest way to do that is to actually draw lines. So use the pen tool, click somewhere above the window lines, okay? You can hold Shift to make sure it goes straight up and down. And then from here, you're not going to see much until you change the stroke and kind of beef it up. Let's say 1 pixel seems fine, okay? The color of this stroke needs to be the same color as this, this face over here, okay? So I'm going to set that off. No, not quite. There's no easy way to do this. I think we just got to set it in terms of the numbers. I think it was that right? No. It was 600060, I believe. There we go. Yeah, 600060. Okay. So you could have this one. If you set it a little bit slightly to the right side, it looks like it's pulling perspective a little. And let's add another tool, another line over here at that same sort of diagonal. And there you're set up. So tutorial doesn't say to work it like that, but now you could just apply this, the gradient that's upcoming to a single shape instead of trying to group them all together. So it's a little more simplified this way. Okay. So select this darker gray, this darker blue, I mean, and we are going to apply a radial gradient to it to look like there's like a nice like fire, you know, some lighting going on inside. Okay. We're almost there with this. So it looks like it's yellow in the middle and a darker orange around the outside. So with this selected, make sure it's in the fill mode over here. Go up to gradient. Let's add a gradient. On the left, I'm going to have something closer to a yellow. On the right, I'm going to have something closer to an orange. The orange, don't want it to be super bright like that. Maybe closer to this, okay. And then you can play around with this center diamond to make sure you like the spread of it, okay? So there you have it. I think there's a few more steps. Yeah. So now, so we just wrapped up step 12. We're on step 13 now. The last step is to design the smoke, and we're using that blend tool, okay? Drawing 2 curves with this particular CMYK value, 40, 000. The one that's visible, we're going to set to an opacity of 50. The invisible one that we blend out to, we're going to set it to 0, okay? So let's get this done. Yeah, I'm just going to keep this in the same house layer. So using the pen tool, I'm going to draw a nice S-curve looking like that. I have that same gradient. I'm going to get rid of it. And the stroke color, I'm going to set to, what was that? Kind of forgot. Yeah, 40000. By the way, if you guys want to know how I do that quickly, when you have the color window open, start by highlighting the value for C, for cyan. Type in the number you want, press tab, and then type in the other numbers. In this case, it's easy to remember. So it's like the keystrokes are 40, tab, 0, tab, 0, tab, 0. Okay. So you don't have to, it's one kind of ease of life thing right there. I think I'm gonna adjust the curvature of this a little bit. Okay. I want to add another stroke. Important point here, I'd recommend you do not start at the original anchor point. Okay, set it off a little bit to the side, because these two lines, they do want to be separate entities. They can kind of, it'll become a little clearer when we get into the blend tool. Okay, it's not very natural there, so I'm going to adjust some of these handles, take out some of these kinks. Okay, one of them, the opacity we're going to set to 50. The other, we're going to set the opacity to 0. Let me just test out what this blend looks like. I think the options were set to 40. It's probably all right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me just look at that. That's, I don't know what happened there, but that's kind of cool. I think I had more selected than I anticipated, so let's try that again. There we go. So here's what I was talking about. You want to keep these paths separate so that later on, after you do the blend option, you can actually still push around some of these anchor points and manipulate the blend and the shape of it as you go along. Okay. In order to do that, and for the blend to work properly in this way, the two lines have to be separated in terms of, like, they can't be a connected line, like a single path. Okay. All right, guys. So that was start to finish, how to put together this winter scene. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Last step, save. This whole time I did not save. Okay, so make sure if you're working in the VDI app, save it to the desktop on the app. Okay, so I like to save things with today's date on it. This is the winter scene. So that's saved onto the desktop. Once you do that, you want to go onto your Google Drive and then drag and drop that same file from your desktop into your drive so you can have it available to work on other machines if you need to. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks for sticking through this. Good luck. I'll see you in class.